All right, what is going on, everyone? Happy Monday. Hope everyone had a great and happy 4th. I just dropped a note in here. We're going to be trying out a few new things here. So I want you to bear with me. I appreciate you. Appreciate you sticking with it as we get into it. So I'm going to try, basically, what we're trying to do is we've got like a pretty big audience on Zoom from people that follow along. Shelby can drop the link if you all want to drop on Zoom. Look, when I'm doing just like a one-to-one interview, it usually doesn't matter too much. But whenever I've got someone else, we're trying to find kind of the absolute best platform to be able to showcase on. So 1, just toss me a quick thumbs up. Make sure you can hear me. 2, I'm going to share my screen. And Shelby, what I'd love to do is maybe just, let me know how this appears for all of you. So I'm going to try to jump in here. I'm going to try to do this little ditty here to see if we can, do some type of screen share that I'm hoping this is going to, maybe kind of fix some of this. So let me know if you guys can see my screen now. And it looks like a Zoom. Let me know if you all can see that. Just toss me a thumbs up. I've got it in here. And I think I can also still keep myself as a thumbnail for now. Yeah, there we go. What's up? There we go. I got it cracking, right? So let me know if that works for everyone, if they can see that Zoom. So basically what I'm going to do then is Marco should be joining me here in a sec on the Zoom. And we're going to be talking about motivation, right? And kind of, I've got some questions for everyone around motivation. 1, what are your thoughts on it? Can you motivate somebody, right? Can you actually move somebody? Can you motivate them? Because I feel like a lot of people, I've heard this before many times, like you can't motivate people. And I think that's personally, I'm going to be interested to see what Marco says, but I think that's bullshit because I think you can motivate people. Now, do I think that if they don't find passion in it, can it work all the time? Probably not, right? You can't over motivate people, right? Like if there's something you hate doing, I can probably motivate you to do it a handful of times. So I'm going to ask him this questions too. The very first thing I want to know is, do you believe you can motivate people? So in the comments, just drop a quick yes or no. Let me know. I've got a new mic setup too. I'd love to know. Just let me know. Hey, Jake, how's the new mic setup sound as well? Shelby, you're going to be coming in live and there we go. So let me know how the new mic setup sounds. I think it's hopefully it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good in my feedback here, but let me know. What's up, Vlad? Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you joining as usual. Marco should be joining here in a quick second. There's Shelby made a quick cameo. All right, Marco is on. Fantastic. Marco, are you on the StreamYard? The StreamYard link that Shelby sent over. So, hey, what's up, Marco? So Marco's on LinkedIn, which is great. Now, you can't on LinkedIn pull somebody live on LinkedIn. You have to actually go through a third-party service. So Marco, if you can hear me, brother, Shelby should have sent you a link for this, and you can do that. Shelby will drop this link to you right now. Shelbs, if you can take care of that. Vlad says the mic sounds perfect. That's good. It's interesting. Like we invested in like this fancy mic setup, and then we just then decided that we should, or actually, you know what? She should be sending you, I'm sorry, Marco, this is my bad. She should be sending you a link from Zoom, not from StreamYard. So Shelby, make sure to send him the link from Zoom because I'm going to try some new stuff here today. So again, we're talking motivation here. Nicole, we're glad that you just happened to jump in. We're happy to have you. Again, the question I want you to answer, and I'm asking for everyone to put, can you motivate people? Is it possible to motivate somebody? Is it possible to have them become more motivated? Or is it intrinsic? Or is there a breakdown that you see? Because I think this is a topic that a lot of people either have very, we'll call it like nervous reactions around, or are like, yes, I totally think I can motivate people. And then they reference coaches and stuff like that. So Marco, no fret, no worries, my man. We'll make sure that you have the link, the Zoom link. Get him the Zoom link. And what I might do here is I can actually make sure, let me see what I can get into here, Marco, if I can troubleshoot myself here. Can't promise anything. That's why I have great people like Shelby and Ali Ray who take care of this stuff. So I don't, I'm not left to my own devices on this. So yeah, again, we're going to be taking all your questions around, motivation today. So start dropping some of those questions in there. Marco. All right, Marco, take a look at your email. I just sent you the link. I think you can join that link too. So you should be all set, my friend. Get back to LinkedIn. Make sure we're good there. Okay, great. So have you ever heard of Prochaska's readiness scale? Nicole, I have not. I have not heard of that. So, but you can feel free to let us know what it is. I wish, LinkedIn Live doesn't have the ability. Like I can't just, all I really want is to bring you guys live. I want you to be able to ask your questions, pop in, pop out. Right now, like I have to have you join a link. It's like a whole thing, but we are going to start to do that. So I really encourage all of you, keep tuning into these lives. We're starting to work out. So how LinkedIn Live works is actually a third-party technology. You kind of route through LinkedIn Live. For everyone joining on Zoom, let me make sure I let all my Zoom folks in. And then, so we've got people starting to roll in on the Zoom. Let's see, make sure that Marco is not one of those people. Great, and you'll be able to see Marco and I live on both platforms, assuming I don't mess this up, which is also likely. Not likely. I'd like to give myself some more credit than that, but it's possible that I could be the one that messes it up too. So cool. All right, so we've got some folks. Again, if you're joining on Zoom, do me a favor, drop in company and title. I can already see your name, so I want to know: do we have leaders here? Do we have individual contributors? You can do the same thing on LinkedIn. Let me know. Are you a rep who's looking to kind of how to up your motivation or work with your leader? Are you a leader who's trying to up their motivation? Let me know. There we go. There we go. All right, there you are, man. Can you hear me? Do you got me, Marco? Yep, I can hear you. All right, so now I'm going to try the first ever LinkedIn Live to Zoom jump switch here. Actually, you know what? This kind of works here. I think I'm going to leave it like this. Can you hear me okay, though? Marco, I don't think you can hear me. Yeah, dude, we're good. We're all good. Everyone on Zoom, let me know if you can hear as well. Let me know if you can hear and see us. Rana, as usual, I appreciate you joining. Again, if you're on Zoom, and even if you're on LinkedIn, what I want you to do, they can't hear Marco. So you can't hear Marco on LinkedIn Live? Just double check that. That's okay. We're trying something new, Marco, where I'm trying to coordinate between the two and get you like in a freeze screen, and try to figure out. That's my jam. I like coming up with new ways to make things more difficult for myself. All right, so they can't hear Marco on LinkedIn Live. So let me try to figure out how to fix this. Let me think about this. Okay, so right now he's in I got it. Okay, I'm gonna take my headphones off.
Should I just enter via LinkedIn?
And then if you enter on LinkedIn, I can screen share on Zoom. Let's do that.
Okay, so I'm gonna get off of this and go back.
Well, actually, hold on. But before you do that, I'm gonna try one more. Let me try one more thing first before you do that. Okay. Okay. All right, all my LinkedIn folks, I'm gonna try this now. So Marco, can you talk real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Great to be with you, man. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties.
Well, dude, don't be sorry at all.
Jinx when it comes to technology.
No, dude, no, you're not a jinx at all, man. This is me trying to get cute with it, right? Like this is what I try to do. I try to get cute.
Jeremy Ben Israel says Zoom is working fine.
Yeah, Zoom is working fine. I got to get to where I make sure that this is working fine. I think we should be almost. I think I'm almost good here. I'm just going to go ahead and bump up the volume just to make sure on the speakers everyone can hear. All right, let's go to output. Let's max that out. Okay, it's already maxed out. Okay, cool. All right, there we go. Make sure we bring Marco back over here. Okay. All right, so all my LinkedIn folks, let me know if you can hear Marco okay. It sounds like we're good to go.
Can you guys hear me? I love LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think they can hear you. Yeah, I'm getting people. They say they can hear you. I just had to take my headphones off. So All right, here we are. It's 11:08. What's going on, everyone? Again, I really appreciate you tuning in. Again, let us know, again, if you're a leader who's looking for more advice, or if maybe if you're an individual who's looking for more support, or looking for, looking to find better ways to motivate yourself, right, as an individual. And, I had a chance, Marco was kind enough to send me a copy of the book. And so I had a chance to look through it a little bit. So I've definitely have some questions here as well too. Shelby, you can too, if you want. Again, I kind of like this experience. I can see it pretty well right now on LinkedIn Live, but we'll drop the link to the Zoom if you want to join there as well. It's kind of similar for both of these. So tell me a little bit about, Marco, the inspiration for the book, right? So out of all the topics, you're a boutique PR agency of the year, right? Just all the time, right? And you have this amazing practice, and you wrote a book about this like primal motivation, right? And I want you to describe it better than I can, but I think if you can you maybe talk a little bit about the inspiration? Like, why was this a topic that, out of all the different things that you're an expert at, that you chose to dive into?
Well, thank you, Jake, and I'm blushing if you can't see me right now from all your beautiful compliments. We met way back when,
CrossFit, the black box, man.
Exactly. God bless it. There's a line in my book from a guy named Troy Anderson. Troy, if you're listening, I'm trying to reconnect with you or connect with you for the first time. He wrote a book comparing business to the board game of Go. The Chinese board game with the white pebbles and the black pebbles, and you surround your opponent. And one of the adages for that game is, quote, "Don't get too attached to your first moves." My first move out of the gate was, I should write about what I know about. I'm a PR and marketing and comms guy. I have a boutique agency. I've worked at the biggest agencies. Let me write about how to get it out there, right? During this cluttered, crazy world. The echo chambers that we're all dealing with. How do you penetrate, et cetera, et cetera? Well, I stepped back with the encouragement of my agent. And he said, you know what? Marketing books today are dime a dozen.
Yeah, exactly.
Go deeper than that. Be more original than that. Give us the connection between the most successful people that you've worked with. And I sat on my couch on an Upper West Side apartment that I had turned into an office that you, Jake, visited.
I've been there.
Took those 5
That's right, man.
And told me about Skaled. And I said, that is a winning idea, brother. You gotta go. So I'm back at that office, and I'm literally on the couch, and I'm with my business partner, Liel. And based on him and my agent, Michael Palgan, they started challenging me. And I said, wow, well, what they have in common is they're fucking nuts. They're crazy. Crazy in a good way.
Right,
they're
right.
Eccentric. They're out there. They're free spirits. They're march to their own drummer, et cetera, et cetera. And I went to bed that night, and I was so inspired. I got up the next morning, and I came up with the acronym. I had taught a year before at Fordham as an adjunct, and before that at NYU. And I put on my syllabus every year the Heath brothers, Made to Stick. You probably read it.
Yeah.
Your audience has read it, et cetera. And they have a great acronym success. The acronym for my book is Roaming.
Roaming.
The book is called Primitive, Tapping the Primal Drive That Powers the World's Most Successful People. It came out at the height of COVID on, coincidentally, my birthday, April 14th.
Wow.
And not an easy time to get it out there, but thanks to you and other people that have taken interest. And I don't know if you saw it, got buried in more important news, but we actually made it onto the Wall Street Journal bestseller list at number 4 at
Awesome.
the end of last week. So
awesome. Congratulations, man.
And so, what was supposed to be about marketing and PR and communications turned into something deeper, about business, about self-help, about motivation. Be happy to talk about that.
Yeah.
A little bit of memoir. So sometimes, yes, we write about what we know, but I think the punchline here, Jake, is sometimes we know more than we give ourselves credit for.
I agree. And so that was it. This was the topic that, as you really thought through, this was the topic that got you motivated, and I guess hit your primal.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there are a lot of great agencies out there, and there are a lot of great practitioners. I think one wonderful thing about the agency world, and you know this from consulting, Jay, is that you can eat at the buffet of your professional life.
Yeah.
You don't have to just have that same course day in and day out. You are a decathlete within your profession. And I've been fortunate to do that, whether it's working with Fortune 500 CEOs, whether it's working with startups of unicorns, whether it's working with mad scientists, crazy artists, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, I will out myself as a neurotic, shrink-going Jew on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I happen to be far from Austin, Texas, but I'm in Austin in spirit. I'm in Great Barrington, Mass, in southwestern Massachusetts in the Berkshires. And I was fortunate enough to have a place to escape to, and I did escape here. And it allows you to get deep with it.
Yeah.
In the words of one of the characters in my book, Alan Lightman, who is the only professor at MIT that has taught both the hard scientists, in his case physics, and also the humanities. He's now a social entrepreneur. He's an amazing writer. He's a TED speaker. He wrote a book called In Praise of Wasting Time. That's right, you heard right. In Praise of Wasting Time, based on a TED Talk. And I think wasting a little bit of time and thinking deeply and originally and creatively, and all these words that are overused, but in our heart we know what they are, and get out with it. So I've heard these terms like disruptor and change agent and rebel and maverick, free spirit, iconoclast. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The big point of the book, guys, is that there's something deeper happening. There's something that goes back tens of thousands of years. And oftentimes we don't trust that intuition. We don't believe in what's innate, what's instinctive. And what I've seen, the people who have built the most successful organizations and have had fun doing it, have made an impact doing it, have retained their independence doing it, are those that can tap into those primal instincts. And the good news is you don't have to be born that way. There is much you can do to learn from others. And hopefully there's enough of an RX prescription element in my book to help people do just that and no longer be the good little boy, good little girl, stand in line, get straight A's, go to the right school, and then hate their job and be frustrated and say, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Yeah. So talk a little bit about roaming, right? So I had a chance to kind of take a look through. So roaming is kind of the acronyms that you set up the chapters with, right? They kind of talk through it. So how did you, and again, when you're thinking about putting this together and you're thinking about, the point or the message that you want to get across, maybe talk a little bit about like, what is roaming, right? And again, obviously someone, they're not going to, you got to pick up the book, step one, and make sure we drop the link for the book. Okay, everyone, make sure to drop the link, Shelby, for the book. Check it out. I mean, when Daniel Pink, who's one of my favorites, Barbara Corcoran, who I also love, give you ringing endorsements, I think that's about all you need to hear. And so tell me about roaming. Tell everyone about roaming and what that means.
And humbled by their endorsements. And as I said, back to that couch on the Upper West Side, I got up the next day and literally, and it sounds proverbial, the back of an envelope, but yes, it was the back of an envelope. And I thought about a word that would convey both modernity, roaming, when we go to a new country, that's the first thing that we see on our cell phone screen, but also harken back to something ancient, something timeless, something that's been around forever. So I'll go through the acronym very quickly and I'll dispel some misnomers about some of the words in the acronym. So it's 7 steps. The first is R equals relentless. And for me, relentless is not just working hard. We know out there a lot of people that work hard and they end up being hamsters in the wheel.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people who know when to turn right, turn left, U-turn, or stop the car altogether and quit and get into a new vehicle. So I want to talk more about that concept, and I have some examples around it. O is for oppositional. Having the courage to say, I zig when you zag. I respectfully disagree with that. I see it in a different perspective.
Yep.
We're taught to agree and say, great idea, Jake.
Oh,
great
so
idea,
good.
Great idea, Susie. Doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it gets people resentful, passive aggressive, etc. A is for agnostic. We learned that in CrossFit, right? It's not being wedded to any one device. It's not being wedded to any one exercise. The greatest people that I've worked with are those that could put on different hats within the organization and be the best salesperson, be the best product tech guy, be the best salesperson, marketing person, finance, et cetera, we can do more than one thing. M is for messianic. Yes, that means seeing our work as our divine calling. It's more than just a job. It's more than just a career. I stands for insecure. That's right. You heard right. I'm not preaching the importance of having bravado and machismo and confidence, overconfidence. I'm saying actually a little bit of paranoia is going to do you good. And too many of us walk around with the phrase, it's all good.
Right.
Curiously enough, after the civil protests, after COVID, not everyone is walking around saying it's all good. No, it needs to get better.
Yeah.
It needs to improve. There's some things that are effed up here. N is for nuts, we talked about, and G is for gallon. You know, it's funny. The best way to describe gallon is this. I was walking downtown Great Barrington today, and I saw a Rotary Club plaque on the street in the sidewalk.
Okay.
And it said service above self. That's a logo that's been around probably for 100, 150 years. So Gallant is truly looking out for others, promoting others, advancing others, giving others the opportunity, and not just making it about all you. So that's roaming in a nutshell. Yes, our ancestors did it on the high plains. We can do it too in the office environment to take our career and our game to the next level.
So I went ahead and typed it out for everyone in LinkedIn here. We'll drop it in Zoom as well. Again, if you all have questions for Marco, start dropping them in. I've got a few in here. Ryan Chisholm has already ordered your book, so we already have one official book sale. Marco,
appreciate that. One book at a time.
Ryan, you're the man. I appreciate it. Ryan's very active, always taking advantage of these, which is great, man. We appreciate you. Ron Plonis says make it 2. Let's try to make it at least 20 today, guys. Right? Let's try to make it at least 20, maybe 25. Let's see what we do here. Laura Hopkins had a pretty interesting maybe like summary of, I think, insecure. She called it like weaponizing anxiety. And she said, would love to talk about this. So maybe we can start there. I've got some questions, but Laura, I really like the way that you phrased that. So what do you think about that concept of weaponizing anxiety?
Well, we say something very similar in the book about that. And I often tell my employees that anxiety is underrated. In other words, if you look at the research, there is a syndrome out there called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you heard of it, Jake?
No, the Dunning-Kruger?
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Dunning-Kruger effect. No.
Look it up on Wikipedia.
Okay.
Founded by 2 psychologists about 20 years ago. They did research discovering that incompetent people actually think they're competent.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? On the other side of the coin is the imposter syndrome. Hello, I'm an imposter. Meaning I have doubts about my abilities. I have fears. I have inhibitions. I'm getting over many of them, but I find them as the greatest motivator. If the flame is too high, it's debilitating.
Right.
If the flame is at the right height, it can take you to new heights. So I'll give you an illustration. I got pissed off with all the thousands of business books out there and the hundreds that I've read that either people were just telling war stories and it was all good and they just had the Midas touch, God bless them, but it wasn't very revealing, it wasn't very vulnerable, Or you get stuff that's interesting and research-based, but there's no human face. It's like, I don't even know you, Miss Writer, Mr. Writer. Who are you as a person? So I'm an open book, pun intended. And I shared a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years. And many of them, most successful, are those that also call themselves imposters. I'll give you one quick example. My former colleague and current friend, Ricky Jory, runs marketing for YouTube in all of EMEA. We quote her in the book as saying, she's the most insecure person she knows, quote unquote. That's how she sees it actually as an advantage. She doesn't take things for granted. She doesn't walk around thinking it's going to be all good. She has a plan B, she has a plan C, she has a plan D, and she embraces it, right? I think the late Kobe Bryant also talked about that. He didn't go on the court thinking, hey, he's going to nail another 45 points, right? He used that doubt to fuel him to the next great achievement.
And how do you feel people can start that? I'm just going to call it like the weaponizing process, right? I think for a lot of people, Marco, and people ask me, when we work with organizations about LinkedIn, right? And if they're in the B2B space, about how LinkedIn organic, and because face-to-face is gone, how else are you going to talk to your buyers, right? Like, and what a better platform than LinkedIn, where especially you're in B2B, you have so many of these people. And I think whether I talk to CEOs of companies that are unicorns, or I talk to sales reps, I think it's that getting that those first inclinations of how to weaponize anxiety, for how to get over imposter, and a lot of what we see is like, if we can get the flywheel started, right, with a lot of these people, if we can help with the content, get you in a rhythm, that after 2 or 3 weeks, it kind of, with the right person, it takes off. But how, if you're sitting there by yourself and you don't have an agency or somebody you're working with to help to motivate you, how do you, like, what are the first steps to thinking about this concept of weaponizing anxiety? And not, because I don't think those are the types of people usually didn't go too far. Maybe sometimes they are. But what have you seen anything when you analyze the book? Have you seen anything that was common, or did you see any type of like, I made this step, or maybe even your own personal life, to where you saw people that were able to make that first leap?
Right. Well, let's just be clear, first of all. When we say weaponize anxiety, we're not saying it that we're making it your absolute defining feature. We're
Right.
all complex individuals bringing different characteristics, different skill sets to the table. But we've often been told what we should and what we must do. And you might remember this, Jake, from a very well-known late psychologist that I quote, Albert Ellis, who says we should stop shoulding on ourselves. We should stop the mustibation,
Right.
the masturbatory thinking, because it leaves you in a corner. So if you're like a sales guy, and he does talk about salespeople in his book, it's like a sales guy that he was working with said, I must hit 2 million in sales. Well, he didn't reach his mark. So the guy was depressed. Instead, the approach is, it would be nice if I reached 2 million. But if I don't reach 2 million, that's okay too. I will continue to persevere. So back to your question, I think it starts with that which is most primitive, pure, and natural. And for those that are just tuning in now, I'm reclaiming the word. I mean it in the most positive sense.
Yeah.
I mean it in terms of nature, and in terms of animals, and in terms of, thankfully my dogs have been quiet, but they might start barking soon. So I just want to give that as a Children are primitive. Children ask questions. So in terms of how to do this, rather than being silent at the end of a conference call, rather than saying it's all good and let's move on to the next agenda, it's the ability to question. One of the pieces of research that I most like that came out of HBS is that kids, we're talking kids 5, 6, even younger, ask.
Marco, something you did, you hit your microphone or something. Oh.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. When they become teenagers, it goes to only a couple questions a day. They've had that spirit inculcated out of them, if I'm using my English correctly. I'm sorry.
I'm not the guy to ask. You've already used 2 or 3 words where I'm like, I'm just going to trust that those fit.
Exactly. So I didn't use it right, but I used it half credit. My wife was on, who's a real grammarian. She said, come on, you went to Columbia University, you don't even know that word, you don't even know how to use it. But basically, guys, we've been trained to think a certain way.
That's right.
And if you look at the uber primitives out there, whether it's Ariana Huffington, whether it's Oprah Winfrey, whether it's Mark Benioff, who we talk about in our book, we also talk about Ariana, who I had the pleasure to meet a couple times and work with her team on several projects. Whether we talk about Elon Musk, who is the uber primitive, right? Totally marches to his own drum. If you remember that roaming, the relentless, oppositional, agnostic, messianic, insecure, nuts, and gallant, he does it all. He gets checks in all those boxes. So if we're not inclined that way, I think the best thing to do is go through that acronym. Of course, read the book will help, but go through the acronym and say, where can I make a difference? I'll give an illustration. My sister, who's unfortunately I don't think watching, but she is, Laura, I love you. She's in Brentwood, California, spent the 4th in Santa Barbara. She's one of the most civilized people I know. Yes, it's a yin-yang. We haven't talked about that, Jake, but I want to introduce also the other archetype, which is civilized, that a lot of us might be. I'm a bit of a mud. I'm not an uber primitive. I'm somewhere in the middle, although a skew primitive. And are you hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's I worked with her and I said, look, what can you be more gallant about today? What can you do to put the interests of a cause or an organization or a charity or a person looking for a job ahead of what you might be thinking should be your objectives today? The same thing goes for being a little bit nuts. So many people are so risk averse. They're so scared to take that risk. But not only do you have to put the ball up in the air, as we say in football, to really score touchdowns. Yeah, you can keep it on the ground, but you got to put the ball in the air. You also have to call audibles on the line. You also have to be willing to make changes. When things are not working, you need to change. So again, rather than just doing as what we're told to do and just checking in and checking out of work, the truly successful people take it personally. They do have a little chip on their shoulder, right? They do. They have been told they didn't go to the right schools. Look at you kicking ass, Jake. Missouri State.
That's right. Go Bears.
Exactly. And that's the point. We're told that you got to go to an Ivy League.
That's
school.
right.
We're told you have to score a certain amount on the SAT and GRE and GMAT and all that crap. But I'll tell you, the people who work for me, so I signed their check, every single one of them got a higher score on the SAT than I did. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by embracing the insecurity and saying, look, I might not be the tech wizard. I could barely figure out how to get on your Zoom call, but I'm strong in other areas. So it's doing that, assets and liabilities, and not overcoming this is one thing I want to be oppositional with you about.
Yeah.
Not overcoming our insecurity, but owning it as part of ourself, right?
Right.
We also have great other skills, but it's part of our mosaic, and we can actually use it as jet fuel to skyrocket in our careers.
How do you, and so is the advice to own it and just take the first step? Like listen to what your body is telling you to speak up, to say something. Is that a core of this, Marco? Like that concept of you already know what you and it's like
that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I one of the people we talk about in the book is Kirk McDonald, who is one of the highest ranking executives at AT&T. Came from a poor background. His parents were immigrants from Jamaica, goes to CCNY, City College of New York. He has to drop out because he doesn't have enough money. He starts from the bottom in the tech and media industry, rose all the way up to be head of Time Warner. He was my client when he was president of Pubmatic, a leading ad tech firm. And now he's leading the whole ad tech side of AT&T, the 9th biggest company in the country. When I interviewed him, he said, Marco, I'm an imposter. I said, Kirk, I'm one too. We both are. So we don't walk around with the t-shirt saying, I'm an imposter.
Right.
It's part of our identity. And it means, like the old tagline for Avis, we try harder. We don't take things for granted. We are a little bit paranoid, right? And that is key to enabling us to be not just more successful, I would argue something else. And this gets back to Ricky Drury, who works at YouTube, to be more likable,
right?
To be more approachable, to be more vulnerable, to be honest with our team when we're having a shitty day and we didn't make our numbers, rather than the swagger of, we'll get them the next time and not admitting any of the setbacks. That's a turnoff. And in today's world, it's no longer credible.
Yeah, and I think people see through that pretty quickly now. I've got a question for you from the book. So going back to some of the first components of what you talk about, you have a section called Be a Quitter, right? And you talk a little bit about kind of your in-between corporate life and your current world. I think you went back to, if I remember correctly, you also went back to the agency world for like a brief stint in between and then came back. So you talk about being a quitter. What does that mean? What do you mean when you say be a quitter?
Great question. We all grew up, or most of us grew up with the adage, never quit. Quitters never quit. If you're a quitter, you're never going to win. Help me out on that adage. Winners never quit. Quitters never win.
That's it. Yeah.
Guess what? It's not true. Some of the greatest people out there in the business world have quit multiple times. When they realize it's not working, when they realize they're pounding their head against their wall, they step back and they say, what's a different direction that I can take? I've done it in my own career, but I've also seen others do it and be inspired by them. You mentioned working with unicorns, and like you, I've had the good fortune to do that. One is Datto in Connecticut, the state's only unicorn. And I was introduced to the founder of the company, Austin McCord, when he was still in his late 20s. I was with him the day that he sold the company at 32 to Robert F. Smith for north of $1.5 billion. This was a guy who had a 2.2 grade point average from RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, and it took him 6 years to get his undergrad. And to be with him that day was one of the highs of my career. Well, a year later, he calls me and he goes, I'm leaving Datto. I go, wow, you didn't want to take it to the next hike? No, I have other things to do. Went to General Catalyst, now doing other things. So we need to trust that instinct that tells us we can be in touch with our own mortality, right? We're all living through a very existential time right now. We can be more hunters than farmers. And you guys know this who are in sales, Jake, direct, indirect. We need both. We need both farmers and hunters. In my lexicon of primitive, I'm urging people to be more hunters, to go out there and practice roaming, to take some risks, not just to wait until someone else kills that big bad beast and, takes it back to the village, but rather to go out yourself and leap forward in your own career and for your organization.
I love that. And again, like the only way to get there is by quitting, right? By quitting the things that don't serve you at that point,
Sometimes that's the only thing to do, that you have to say, I've tried it. And I did in my own career. When we met, you didn't know this, but I was actually depressed. I was depressed to be back in the cubicles of the largest PR firm in the world, Burson Marstone. And it was during an economic downturn. And I talked to my wife, and I was very revealing about this in the book. And a hunter, a true primitive, guy named Mike Clays, who I profile, who didn't do his timesheets and was a horrible manager, and a lot of times didn't show up to work, and his office looked like a hurricane hit it. He was, in my view, not just the quintessential hunter, he was what we're talking about in primitive, right? He marched to his own beat. He was the non-conventional, non-traditional hire. And I realized, I need to get back and reestablish that corporate agency credential. But after a few months, I realized this isn't me. I like the work. I like the clients. I like many of my colleagues, but I can't flourish in this environment. It is like being a plant and planting yourself in the desert when it's dark. You're not going to grow.
Right.
So sometimes quitting equals replanting yourself in more fertile soil. And it's very scary to do that. But part of doing it is really getting in touch. And this is on the messianic side, if I can transition a little bit.
Yeah.
When I first heard that term messianic, I thought, like the Messiah? That's like, a cult?
Yeah. You're going some like a crazy way when people hear that at first, I'm sure.
Right. It's like beyond passion, beyond enthusiasm, etc. I had a guy who was the senior right-hand man for Edgar Bronfman Sr., who in the late 80s, actually, 89, I worked for them for a year. And he was a great guy, passed about a couple of years ago. And he told me on my first day, he said, Marco, sometimes in life, you got to create your own credentials. So a couple months later, I met with his chief of staff, and he said, the most successful people I've met in my career have been messianic, meaning they have such zeal for what they do. Mm-hmm. They have such divine purpose that sometimes they can be off-putting. Sometimes they can be exasperating. Sometimes they can be exhausting, right? But I would say when I saw all the great stuff you're doing with Scaled, I said to myself, Jake is messianic for the first time. And this is a lesson out there. You're never too young or too old. I'm 56. For the first time in my career, I'm messianic about what I'm doing. I see the writing and the speaking and the consulting as what I need to do on my short time on this planet. So I was talking to a client who's a former Fortune 500 CEO the other day, and he said to me, he was interviewing someone for a job, and the first thing they asked in their early 30s was, tell me about your 401k plan. And it's like, put that in the list of turnoffs during an interview.
Yeah. That's question one. Nothing says like keep listening to anything.
How many vacation days I get? Right? That shows such risk aversion. Yeah. So you've got one great, but it's not the priority. So what I'm getting at for those people, don't be like me. Don't toil in the cubicles and take Zoloft to be depressed. Get your ass out of there and connect with what your purpose is in your professional life.
And I think if I can maybe like add to that for all the leaders out there. So if you're a leader and you're listening, you know how I've always viewed my job. My job is to help people to get to that point, whether it's here, whether it's being an entrepreneur, whether it's going to get their MBA. I think too many leaders inside of organizations, instead of fostering that, like my job is to help to understand, like, what are the conditions that your plant thrives best under? Is it here? Fantastic. I'm going to make sure that I provide new opportunities with more fertile ground internally. And if it's not, if you want to go be a DJ, let's go help you be a DJ. If you want to go do this, you want to go get your MBA, go get your MBA. I'm going to help you. I'll go vouch for you. I'll help you to write your letter. And I think as leaders, sometimes we get locked into motivating individuals based on the confines of the box of the job, as opposed to really understanding that your job as a leader is to help people on their next journey and on their journey, and to enable that in your organization as much as you can. And if not, I mean, the amount of conversations, I'm sure you've done the same thing, Marco, the amount of conversations I've had with people to say, is this where you're most passionate? You know, and just giving them that free rein to say like, well, like, yeah. And if you hear that, leaders, that means no, right? Like that's my primitive instinct saying like, this person's not happy and motivated. And I feel like as leaders, what you need to take away from this is this idea that motivation comes from helping people to understand their own conditions, not telling them, hey, you're a ficus. You need to be watered here, here, and here. And it's like, maybe they have some traits of that, but your job really from a coaching standpoint is to help them to understand and support that versus tell someone.
Yeah, God bless you, man. You were so right. I'd like to refer back to Kurt McDonald at Xander/AT&T. When I started working with him back at the end of 2012, he said to me, the two qualities as a leader that are most difficult for him to teach are intellectual curiosity and self-motivation. The good news is, though, and Kirk has helped me do this, is with your workforce, to be curious about them, to figure out what comes easily for them as opposed to what is difficult, and focus on what comes easy, and to help them shine, and to have honest conversations about them. What turns you on? What turns you off? Because what's happening is we're all going crazy in the bad sense of the word, not the good sense of the word, stuck in our silos. And so many of us are hired just because of domain expertise. And I'll take talent over domain expertise any day, because domain expertise gets rusty. But even for those who love to specialize, and God bless them, we need both, they still want some ability, like the book says, range. They want to be able to roam and experience different facets of their job, of the organization. So, people talk about breaking down silos. People talk about thinking outside the box. I could go on with cliches. Spare me, I won't do it. But the reason they're cliches is that it's hitting at something. There's an essence there. There's a hunger there for something different.
Yeah.
And, I think corporate America should be put on the couch. And I mean the therapist's couch. And I'm not, and there's a reason when you watch Billions and you see the life coach, but she's not a shrink. I couldn't have gotten where I did in the business world without therapy. You have to be introspective to figure out what you want in life. And once you're introspective, then you can help others get what they want in life.
I want to build on this a little bit. And then I want to make sure I want to talk about the concept of slaying dragons too, which is something else you talk about that, because I think that's just a different mindset too. And one of the questions we got is, how do you be Masonic, which I think is also an interesting one. So maybe we can do that. What I also want to challenge people listening to this conversation is, yes, we're talking about leadership in corporate America, providing these opportunities to help to see and give you new fertile ground. But I also feel like a lot of people, the reason that they hop from job to job is they also don't, and maybe it's that introspection part, Marco, is that they also don't try to explore opportunities in the companies they're at. They just assume. I think a lot of people feel like they just assume that because this is their job, this is the lot they've been given. And I feel like this skill of managing up and being able to talk to your leader and just proactively saying, look, I'm not super pumped. I like this stuff. I'm not here. What can we do? And I feel like the amount of people that don't realize in quite a few organizations, I don't know what the percent would be, but I'm going to say it's at least 50% of organizations. I have a feeling that organization would be like, okay, how do we make this work for you? And I feel like so many people leave jobs because, they're just like, well, I guess I'm sitting out here in the desert growing like this. This is how it's going to be. Like, you have to take your own personal development under consideration too. And you've got to, you have to, if people are making an investment in you and if they're not making an investment, that's a different conversation. But I feel like a lot of frontline, and it actually goes up, they don't actually give leadership an opportunity to open those doors, to provide better watering and shade and these types of things by communicating that you actually don't know I'm an aloe plant and I need this. And I feel like that would be kind of my challenge to everyone, that before you make that move and you're so certain, give your organization an opportunity to have a dialogue about what you need, what makes you happy. And I feel like so many people are just shocked. They're like, I wish I would have had this conversation 6 months ago. So
and they see the organization as this amorphous body, this institution. The organizations are made up of human beings. Just like people try to game job boards and they say the algorithm, the AI, at the end of the day, AI doesn't hire people, machine learning doesn't hire people, people hire people.
Yeah.
With your boss, be able to tell her or him or however they identify themselves as where you can make the most contribution to the company. Do the research on LinkedIn, show that you know something about them. You know, bosses are human too. I think the adage flattery will get you everywhere is no longer, you know, appropriate and in vogue, but showing interest, showing that you're interested, that you're interesting, that there are other ways that you can make an impact. And so much of that starts with your mindset. I was in Panama in mid-January with an old friend, happens to be in one of the 12-step programs. Another reason, guys, sometimes read less business books and read about more introspection, philosophy, and psychology, and religion, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a line in 12-step programs, there are no victims, only volunteers. Now, that statement might rub people the wrong way, and I don't mean it to apply across.
Of course.
But think about when you're seeing yourself as a victim rather than changing your situation. Sometimes it's quitting, but sometimes it's going to your supervisor and say, hey, I have an idea for a new project, or I think here's a plan to get more clients, or, you know, I'm actually an English major and love to write. I'd like to help on the marketing side rather than just being in sales. So people have to own their own career. They have to own their strengths, but they have to own their weaknesses too. And that's what I mean by the insecurity. Back to slaying your dragons. Dr. Kevin Tracy, he wants to slay the biggest dragons out there of some of the most daunting diseases and illnesses. He's a neurosurgeon who's become a neuroscientist. There's another incredible scientist that I'm missing a conference call with right now to talk to you. That's Dr. Ali Rezai. He wants to cure everything from Parkinson's to Alzheimer's to addiction to COVID-19, okay? They have a singular purpose. They wake up with the notion of what they need to do. I think you and I have that zeal for what we do. Not everyone is as maybe energetic as we are. Some people can be more parasympathetic, more chilled, and sympathetic fight or flight. I'm more on the fight or flight side. That's why
Me too.
I wrote a book called Primitive, right? But we got to own it all. So back to you, but I hope that helps, that even if you're civilized, and civilized people are hierarchical, they're occupational, they're measured, they're insulated, they're non-confrontational, they're grounded. We need a mix. In our book, we talk about how Benioff reached new heights because he has a co-founder, Parker Harris, who is more civilized, who crosses the T's, dot the I's, more process-driven. We need both.
All right. So talk about this idea of, you know, slaying dragons for individuals, right? So if you're an individual and, you know, or maybe even just thinking, how does some of this play out in the first 10 years of your career? You know, where you're still kind of in that, am I quitting or am I learning and it's really hard? Am I, you know, is this the right level of discomfort and failure? Is this too much? Like, I feel like this is kind of, and by the way, there is no, you know, I know that there's no right answer to this question, but I just am curious, like when you were writing the book in particular, how did you, you know, when you think about someone earlier in your career, how can you take some of these and really apply a framework, and only you will know, right, as an individual, but how do you think someone like, let's say, first 10 years, when they read the book, how should they be, like, what, you know, is there a lens, or is there, you know, some key things that you think people should key in on out of all of the chapters or all of the sections? And it could be not, but I'm just curious.
Oh, what a great question. So many thoughts going through my brain.
Yeah, there's like 8 questions in there. So
two books in particular. One is The Body Keeps the Score. It's about trauma, but it applies here. Listen to yourself before you listen to that professor, before you listen to mom and dad, before you listen to uncle, before you listen to boyfriend, girlfriend. In other words, what speaks to you on a spiritual, physical, mental level? More the primitive brain than the cerebral brain. We have both, right? What does the instinct say? What was my instinct when I started my career? Well, I talked about the Bronfman family out of Columbia University. I worked for the World Jewish Congress. Now, if my dad was civilized, and he wasn't, he was primitive. But if he was civilized, he would say, son, what are you doing with that degree? You're working for a friggin' nonprofit. You're not going to be able to support yourself. This isn't going to lead to anything. This is a dead end. No, he recognized that at the time, that was my passion. Now, passions and interests can change, but guys that are starting out, start what speaks to your soul. Start with what comes naturally and organically. You know, my son was rejected from most schools that he applied to, and he's starting college, but he's going to be one of the most successful business people out there. He marches to his own drum. He's an uber primitive, and he has always been fascinated with the stock market. So he took his bar mitzvah money and invested in Tesla back in 2014. He gets on Zillow and looks at real estate. Not everyone has to follow the straight and narrow path. Please, young people, give yourself the opportunity to be a little more nuts, to be a little bit more wild, to run.
I love that.
Because what happens when you don't? Read another book, very different book, called Excellent Sheep, written by a Yale professor, came out a few years ago. It's basically the fact that higher education is doing our young people a disservice. They tell them to be physicists and poets. My wife will say, I'm not enunciating, so I'll enunciate. But we actually want them to be big three consultants. That's what they're told. So too many people have put the idealism, the fire of idealism, they've taken a hose and they've extinguished that at a tragically young age when they should be more nuts, they should be more aspirational, and good things will happen. Trust yourself, work hard, the universe will take care of the rest, and tell people what you want. Do you know, Jake, this is the first time I've engaged in sales in my whole career selling this book.
But still, you're doing it your way, though.
But here's the thing. I learned from Jack Mitchell, hug your customer, like Barbara Corcoran.
Yeah.
Less known, but hug your customer is amazing. And when I said, Jack, give me some advice about marketing the book, he said, Marco, I want you to go to your clients and say, I need your support. I need your help. I'm asking for your assistance. I'm asking you to make a buy. And that kind of direct approach was foreign to me. I was always used to referrals, the phone calls, the email, the tweet, the text. But sometimes people, you got to go out there and, in the words of another book by Gary Spence, the famous old cowboy lawyer, you got to tell people what you want. Tell people what you want.
How do you balance? Last thing I'm gonna throw at you here. Melissa Davis threw this out, and then we've got to wrap. Is, how do you balance the listening to your inner voice versus listening to people who've been there and done it? And I think that is something for, again, you're talking, about listen to your voice, etc. Listen to this, don't listen to your parents, and you balance it. There's no right or wrong way, and in each situation is different, right? But do you feel like there's a framework about, and again, because this book is all about listening, right, to that primitive, that, how do you think about processing the external, or is it just, you just treat it all as different data, data? Like, how do you think about that? Because I think it's a good spot to end.
It's a perfect spot to end. It's a crucial distinction, and my bad for not making it earlier. You want to talk to others. You want to, yes, walk and chew gum, right? We can do two different things at once. You can listen to yourself, but rather than just listening to people, you have to do two things. You have to seek out the right people who you emulate, people who have done interesting things, people who you can learn from, like the conversation I had 30 years ago at the beginning of my career, where the guy told me that truly successful people are messianic. Don't just listen to them, interview them. Be like a journalist, be a reporter. Get into their story, figure out what they were good at, not good at. When I did that in the comms world, I started realizing, wow, a lot of the same weaknesses. These people didn't do well in math, they're not overly technical, but they like to talk, they like to write, they can deal with a crisis situation. In fact, they get off on it.
Yeah.
So not enough people are interviewing others, not just for a job, but in that journalistic sense of really tell me what it's like out there. But we've stopped asking questions. We're all, we're doing what we should do and we must do rather than we want to do. So yes, I'm not telling you ignore your parents, listen to them, interview them, and a host of others. But at the end of the day, first listen to yourself. And as they say, putting yourself first is not selfish. I wish I would have learned that line when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Yep. I love it, man. Well, Marco, it's good to catch up, man. I'll hit you up so we can just catch up one-to-one too. It's been too long, man. I love it, man.
Awesome work, man.
Thank you so much, everyone. Again, we dropped the link in the chat, both in LinkedIn and Zoom. Please go check out the book. I'm just getting into it. It's such a really nice framework for those of you who are thinking about, man, I want to trust myself more. I know that I should be trusting myself more. I think hopefully it kind of gives you the courage to make that leap and to think about your own life and career in that same, and we can learn from Marco and his experience. So
the best salespeople out there, they're primitive.
I think so too, man.
They're hunters. They're not farmers.
That's exactly right, man. And I know that about myself. I love current customers so much, and I work and interact with them, but I like growing their business, not catching up about the tea on Tuesday. So you're 100% right. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. Marco, thank you, man. This is a lot of fun.
Take care. Really enjoyed it. We'll catch up soon.
Have a good one, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.